Welcome back to Ride a Stream. We are here to talk about Falling Skies. We're going to navigate season one after our beloved Lost has disappeared off of streaming services. Michelle and I are here to tackle a new series. If you're new here, I'm Travis, co-host, and my podcasting better half, Michelle Brittany. Michelle, how are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm glad we landed on another series to talk about. This one's also, I don't know how many seasons there are. I think there might be five, but they're not 25 episodes a season. So I think we can tackle this one and get through it before it leaves our streaming services. Hopefully, fingers are crossed. But we'll just take it one season at a time and hope for the best. Definitely looking forward to talking about Falling Skies. I know my background is I recently came to it because I know this is another an older series that I think came out in like 2011.
Yeah.
So this has some age on it already. Um, and we'll talk about, how does it fare and maybe in comparison to Lost and what we think that way. But I'm a newbie to it. I did watch the first season and started into the second, and then when, like you said, our beloved Lost left our streaming service, this seemed like it might be a good fit. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember how I think it was a TNT show, and maybe I watched it because I think it would come on during the summers.
Hmm.
Um, so I watched, I think, three or four of the five seasons. I never was able to finish it. So I'm excited to just revisit it and if we're able to make it to the finish line, see how it ends. But I think if you're ready, I can dive into the synopsis and
Sounds
then
good to
just
me.
roll with it.
Sounds good. Let's roll.
All
Like
right.
your
So let's
t-shirt
see.
says that people can't see, but
My son Marshall and someone gifted us matching Dungeons and Dragons t-shirts since that's his new favorite thing in the world. We could talk about that all day. So, Falling Skies, uh, season one, episode one, uh, aired June 9th, 2011, titled Live and Learn. And the first episode of Fallen Skies doesn't just throw viewers into the mass alien invasion that devastated humanity, it showcases this telling by the most vulnerable. Children voice over what's happened, as their artwork shows the devastation of how aliens came in great numbers, killed all the soldiers, and, quote, now moms and dads have to fight. They also describe how kids are captured and harnesses are attached to control them. A horrifying reality if I've ever heard one. Because what does that mean exactly? How are they controlled? To do what? Next, we see Tom, played by Noah Wiley, and his older son Hal, played by Drew Roy, as they navigate down a damaged street to scavenge for food. But orange and blue targets appear out of nowhere before killing various people. They retreat to a barricade, crawl through, but the enemy blasts some kind of explosive. They narrowly hide in a store, watching someone torched with bluish flames before being surrounded by skitters, the enemy, a multi-legged alien that looks like a gigantic crustacean of some kind. After escaping out the back, they run into other survivors, and the leader, Weaver, announces they're abandoning their post, signaling they've lost the city. New orders are given, and the entire group of people is being divided into three, each with 100 soldiers and 200 citizens. Weaver will lead one, with Tom as his second in command. And the one dishing out the orders tells Tom he posted him with Weaver to make sure the civilians are protected. Does this mean Weaver isn't a good dude? Fast forward to a new plan. Tom asks for half the soldiers to go back and go to various food depots. Weaver relents, letting Tom lead, but only with 6 soldiers and a vehicle. On their way, Hal and another scout have to be certain that the coast is clear. In doing so, Hal sees Ben, his other brother who was abducted, and he's alive. And he has an attachment to the back of his neck and spine. He tells his father they should go despite being overwhelmingly outgunned. And Tom literally has to tackle his son, telling him he wants his son more than anything, but they have to do it right. First, stick to the plan and salvage food. Then, they both will get Ben. When they arrive to the food depot, they are eventually attacked by Skitter and a mech. A mech looks like a metallic two-leg robot where bullets just bounce off. Kind of reminded me of like Battlestar Galactica in a way. Um, the Skitters also wear heavy armor and takes a close range shotgun blast to kill it. The mech requires something a little more delicate, like C4. After returning with a truckload of food, Tom tells Weaver he'll be going after his son. Weaver tells him he's in command and that Tom isn't going anywhere, but Tom insists, asking, "What would you do to get your kids back?" Despite the overwhelming sense that odds aren't in their favor, especially with a gigantic home base that looks impenetrable, Tom tells Weaver that the enemy dies just like they do. You just have to get close. And that is Fallen Skies episode 1. Um, this was really interesting to revisit. Um, and I'd love to hear your take because I mean, this is completely different from Lost. You have an alien invasion, very dystopian, sci-fi. Um, what's your take?
Oh, definitely enjoyed it. I thought the mechs kind of reminded me of the one robotic from RoboCop, the the alternative to RoboCop. I don't remember.
Yes.
I can't remember the name. I mean, if Nick was here, he'd rattle it off right away. But
Great call.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned Battlestar Galactica because I immediately got that same vibe. Ragtag, survivors are trying to find, you know, um, a safe place. Obviously the Battlestar Galactica, they're trying to get to Earth. That's kind of this, rumored myth, but they're going to try and get there. But you do have a similar vibe in this, where it's the same kind of thing. You have a small, group of career soldiers, ones that have that information versus the civilians, that they're meant to, keep safe as they get to. Um, I think with Falling Skies though, because they're already on Earth, they're trying to find a safe space, but they're also trying to develop strategies to make the aliens go away. And that was something that I really liked about the grocery store scene. First, I really like Tom. I think he's a great character. I love history and the fact that he's a military history professor. I had a history professor at junior college, and his name is Professor Cordy, and he knew military really well, and it just made me so fascinated by military strategy. So I really had an affinity for Tom, really identified very, very closely with his bringing in of historical lessons as a way to help shape what they were going to do. And obviously this is having seen the first season, this will be a theme that'll come up repeatedly. But I do like that, when they're in the grocery store and they're trying to get the food, that they learn that there is a way to deal with um the aliens. And he basically says, if we look at history, if you annoy them long enough and if you kill enough of them, they will go away. And he references some historical lessons um, to kind of substantiate that. And I thought that was actually really interesting. I personally, I love the intro. I thought that was such a brilliant way to really kind of show what has been happening and really quickly brings us up to, yes, we had an alien invasion. Here in our most vulnerable population of humanity, the children explaining what's going on, from their eyes, their perspective, their drawings. I thought that was really well done, and I was intrigued from the moment I started watching it. The fact that this is children speaking in what they've gone through, and it just
Yeah.
the whole episode is, I thought, established well that these are us. These are everyday people. And it isn't just go down to your local Albertsons and get your food. Now you've got to fight for it. You may not have food, and if we think in the larger scheme of things, we as a society no longer, have the same attachment to, crops. We've got all these processes in between, and, now these people have to navigate and they're not able to start gardens because they have to continually be on the move. And, this happens, this is just one group, hopefully, and they're in the Boston area, because, we learned that this is the second Massachusetts group troop, and they're going to try and regroup further away, in hopes of being able to grow their numbers and eventually go back and attack this huge mothership. I thought it was really nice too, and I'm sorry I'm rattling on, but
Oh,
all
please.
the various invasion movies that we've seen, um, you see a mothership, but you don't get a whole lot of other information necessarily. And I do like that they go into depth. Like I have in my notes just kind of a quick hierarchy of the aliens. We see a mothership, we see scouting ships that are flying over. We've got the mechs, we've got the skitters, and we've got the harnesses. And it really quickly, at a high level, scripts out what we can expect to see in the episodes to come with that alien hierarchy. So we learned a little bit about the aliens as well as obviously learning about our heroes of the story. Particularly Tom. We've got Hal, his son. To a lesser extent, his youngest son Matt, as well as a colorful crew of other people. A doctor. We've got Weaver and Porter that is like kind of the big commander, in there, and many others. But yeah, I thought it really gave a really nice overview of what kind of that sense, that tone, things that we can expect, the hardships that they're going to have to go through, that really kind of brings us in and makes us interested to come back the next week for the next episode. Sorry, that was
Yeah.
long-winded, but I did really
No,
enjoy the first episode.
no, that was great. I agree with you. Tom, Noah Wiley is, I don't know how much of his works I've watched, but
Hmm.
ever since ER and he was in the Librarian movie series and he's getting I think he got recognized for his role on his new TV show. Was it The Pit, which I have not seen,
Oh
which is
yeah.
another hospital emergency room
Oh,
style
okay.
show. He just has a presence about him where you want, like for me, I want to see him on screen and
Hmm.
the way he's able to kind of react and um, similar with loss, how can someone respond without vocalizing it? How's their facial expressions handle things? And there's that scene where he walks up and uh, there's a teenager who someone tried to take off whatever the attachment was, but if you take it off, they die. And he's just got
Hmm.
this, pained, statuesque look on him. So he's definitely someone who I enjoy seeing. Um, the person who plays Weaver, I think it's Will Patton, I think is his name.
Yeah, I've
I
seen
remember
him
him
in other
from,
things. Yeah.
yeah, like he was in movies like Gone in 60 Seconds with Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie. He was in the Punisher movie. Um, he's been in
The
several.
one
He was,
with Thomas Jane? That one?
yeah, he was
Oh,
in
I didn't
that.
remember him in that.
He was in
He's got one of those,
Armageddon.
he has such a recognizable face, but he's a great character actor, I think,
Yeah.
and I think he's going to really show a lot of depth, I think, in his performance through the first season for sure.
Remember
Um,
the Titans? Yeah, I mean he's another person who's just like, oh, I forgot he's on this show, and that's another like bonus because I think he does a great job in his performances. Um, I do think that this episode, you're primarily getting the father-son action.
mhm.
You're seeing different scenarios, but it's kind of through their perspective. Um, and it was interesting seeing how their roles changed based on where they were.
Mhm.
Like out in the field, you know, Tom's in charge. But back home with the younger son Matt, Hal is kind of picking up the slack saying, "Hey,
Mhm.
give your dad some slack," or he brings the birthday gift
Yeah.
when Tom has forgotten or unable to get something. So you have these different roles. Which is interesting because, I mean, in this type of setting, you're leaving a militarized led life. Like you have to kind of be where someone can protect you. Um, so it's interesting that perspective of, again, Battlestar Galactica, where, you know, the ships that hold all the citizens, they have to be protected
Yeah.
in some way. Um, and so it's similar here. What did you think of uh the I guess the overall view of the show with where the setting and the Boston area, the aliens themselves and their presence and the
Mhm.
massive towering s- I don't know what you call it. It was like a multi-legged building.
Yeah, it is definitely different. They didn't go with a hovercraft, like in Independence Day, which I thought was interesting. Yeah, it's like this alien ship just kind of drops, anchor almost. I mean, I guess you could almost describe it like an anchor, but it's like four or five legs and it just attaches itself. It made me think of like Parasite, you know. Um, Particularly the harnesses, which seem almost like, being put on a host. And then their mothership looking like, a big tick. I mean, flat tick, I guess, but definitely, an invasive feel, a sense of danger, disgust even by the fact that, what a parasitic type of entity means, that invasive nature. I thought the aliens that we've seen so far, that were really well done. I really thought the skitters are very interesting. Crustaceans is a good example. It also made me think of Starship Troopers a little bit with some of theirs, as well as Pitch Black, and kind of
Oh
theirs.
yeah.
I mean, similar, in a similar vein. Yet, when they get close enough to shoot the skitter, there is kind of almost some human aspects, elements, that they're not just an unknown. Now, it's like warfare where over history where you went from very close battle. to modern battle, which is very detached. And yet now, because they're using guerrilla tactics in this post, invasion period, they have to go close again. And so you end up learning more about your enemy because you have to get so close. Yet there's that question, particularly as they're watching the Skitter die, that there's something more there. And there's something, there's almost like a human element about them as well. So, I think that that's going to be an interesting aspect to develop. The mechs are, again, almost kind of mirroring our own society, how robots are meant to be, uh, kind of like the muscle, so to speak. Like we've had this fascination with, robotics and what we could do with them to take over the hard labor and things like that. We see that in the car industry, all the various arms and stuff. And, to me, I think that their society is almost, mirrors ours in some ways. And I think that the mechs will be interesting. I think they're a built item. But I'll be fast. I'm very intrigued to find out more about where they all kind of fit in their own society. So I
Yeah.
think that, the first episode gives us enough. I think the writing's quite nice because it gives us enough information, but not so much that we've had, that that kind of knowledge dump that we're told to try to avoid, in writing.
Yeah.
I do like what they give us. They also give us some balance, just like you were saying that, at base, Hal kind of takes up that slack because Tom's second in command, so he can't be at home all the time. And that mirrors society prior to invasion, where your older brother kind of takes care of the younger brother, and siblings take care of the siblings. And yet again, you get that balance. But when they're out in the field, it's a little different. Tom takes the lead. But I like how their relationship. That one scene where they're at the truck and Hal is going to get on his motorcycle and he says, "Oh yeah, remember how you wouldn't let me go to my friend's house after dark? And now look at us." And Tom says, "Well, some things don't change and some things do." And they give each other a big hug. So
Yeah.
there's some real nice, delicate intimate moments, of family, that I think is, there, it's still there. Our humanity is still there. It's fragile. And I think we get a real good sense of that in many different ways. With their different stories, like with I think her name's Annie, the doctor, the pediatrician that's now kind of their resident doctor, and just how she talks about how her husband and son were killed, and they go by a house that she says, "Oh yeah, my husband had an art piece, some sort of painting, a landscape in the house," and so
Yeah.
you know it really brings kind of that human aspect, and I really like that while we're seeing the stresses of warfare, um, the unknown, the struggle to figure out how to get these aliens off of Earth so that they can, we can get back to it being an Earth for humans and not aliens. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do a brief so Tom Mason played not by Noah Wiley. The Anne Glass is played by Moon Bloodgood, and Will Patton is Captain Dan Weaver. Um, I do agree with you. The semblances of humanity, like they're, I do think that in good storytelling, there has to be some idea of normalcy
Hmm.
in the insanity. Otherwise, how do you move on? Like, how do you survive if you can't even remember or do the things that are familiar? Which is, I mean, obviously an invasion or Battlestar Galactica, Lost, even, did the golf, built the golf course, Um, so that scene and also the one where, the birthday gift of the uh it was kind of like a skateboard, but it was like a wobble type skateboard.
Yes. I thought it was like a little hoverboard, like Back to the Future. But I mean, this takes place in kind of our contemporary time, it seems like. So I think it's like I think I've actually seen those kind of boards where they're kind of in half, and so they kind of wiggle back and forth, but it's kind of a skateboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I would never be able to ride that. I'm not that coordinated, but I was like, oh,
I'd be on my butt.
that. Well, and the kid
Um,
did wear a helmet, so that was good. So,
yeah, but in that scene, you
yeah.
slowly people start gathering and just watching a child have fun. And then other kids get on as he shares his time, um and I just thought that was, like you said, that's a reminder, I think, to everyone watching the kid that, like, oh, this is what we're fighting for or trying to survive for.
And that
So
and that's even, that moment is something that if we were in, back prior to their invasion, it is probably something that would not even interest your neighbor. Oh, the kid's out there on a skateboard, big whip, But
yeah,
because of all that, basically Hal went through and the others, Tom and the others, to get the food, and the fact that Hal brought that back, that he could have lost his life bringing back that skateboard, and the
yeah,
fact that then, you know, the giving of something, the meaning means so much more. And not only that, but Matt himself is understanding that and, shares the board, knowing that they're going to have to wrap up. Even Weaver shows a tender moment, like, he doesn't say anything, but, Tom and Weaver kind of look like, yep, I know, we've got to get going,
yeah,
you know. But Weaver doesn't interrupt, but he lets, you know, non-verbally Tom know, and that's nice. I like, we talked about chemistry in Lost, and I think there's going to be, different degrees of chemistry with all these characters, and we're seeing it with Tom and Hal, particularly because they have a lot of screen time together, and to a lesser extent, Matt and others. But I think we really focused in on that father son, that familial relationship, and I think that that helps hook us, to bring us in because we all have families, good and bad. But either it will bring us in because that's a common thread in our society is family. So I
yeah,
think that that was a good choice to focus in on that, to come into the core and then work outward, you know, um, to the community, the need for food and, medicine and other things. So,
yeah. And the chemistry among the characters and like the dynamics of their roles is interesting because it's clear that the leadership roles are going to just have a huge impact on what the survivors do, how they survive. Because in that moment when Hal discovers that uh, Ben is alive,
mm-hmm.
and one, he showed the right mindset to say, hey, I can't just pop up and save him right now. But he
Yeah.
goes back and he tells Tom, his dad, and almost everyone else is on board. Say, all right, let's go now, despite the
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming odds of multiple mechs and what he said, I think was like several hundred skidders or mechs behind him and all the aircraft overhead. And Tom is just like, he's the one that's like, no, we can't do this. We're
Hmm.
unmanned. And he literally has to tackle Hal and just basically shout at him, don't you think I want to go get him now?
Yeah.
And, he says, it won't matter. We have your brother back home. And do you want him to find out that his father and brother are dead? And,
Yeah.
if we do this, we have to do it right.
Hmm.
And that scene is so intense because one, you get a sense that the group that they're with is close and that they're willing to go get
Yeah.
Hal's brother. Um, but they need that vocal leader who's going to be like, no. And they see him literally tackling, Hal to say, no, 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 we can't do this. We cannot go. He says, if we don't do it right, we'll die.
Yeah.
And, and so even though they've seen death, even earlier in the episode when they were hiding in a store and they saw someone like getting attacked, Hal was like kind of trying to get out from underneath the help, and Tom was like literally pulling him, sliding him backwards, like, no,
Yeah.
no, we've got to go. Um, and so it'll be interesting to see how the leadership positions handle all these different missions. Because the next one they talked about having to take on an armory or take over an armory.
Yeah.
Um, and so when they're in those positions, how will the leadership roles eventually, because I'm assuming at some point there's going to be conflict with the leaders, um, much like Weaver saying, hey, I'm not going to let you go after your son. I imagine there's plenty more heated conversations to come.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Um, well, I think maybe we can take a break and then we
Mhm.
can dive into maybe our favorite scene or two
That
in
sounds good.
character.
Yeah.
All
Sounds
right,
good to me.
we'll be right back. Hey everyone, it's Travis with Ride Stream. Just want to say thank you for joining us today. Michelle and I love having our conversations, and if you get anything out of it that makes us feel better, thank you for tuning in. If you can, please subscribe. If you haven't already, like the video. And if you have a chance to pass the video on to a friend who enjoys something that we've covered, whether it's the Thursday Murder Club, Lost, The Martian, whatever, that'd be great. And I guess nothing else to say, but thanks, and we'll get back to the chat. And we're back. We are talking Fallen Sky season one. If you're new, we do a series of questions, favorite scene, most interesting character, and then sometimes we'll do a third question as well. So we'll dive into that. Michelle, did you have a favorite or standout scene? Did you have a list? Um, what say you?
What say me? I did have a list. We've talked about all the scenes. So like the opening scenes, the scene about Kitty. Um, yep. Um, the dialogue about some things change, some things don't. And which kind of falls right into um later the bigger plan, where bee porcupines to their wolves to create enough trouble for the aliens to want to leave Earth. That's, essentially that's, kind of in the nutshell, the big plan that we hear from Tom, the military history professor. Go professors. But and then of course, the the closing scene, which again is kind of focused in on children. This time Ben, it being his birthday, he gets, a little cupcake, um, resources at a premium. So he gets a little cupcake, a little candle, and then the skateboard, and 10 minutes, to celebrate.
Yeah.
That's what their world is like. So those are all kind of my, top, up at the top. But I still think that probably my favorite scene is the opening scene. I just think they did that so well with hearing the children's voiceover narrating along with their drawings. I thought was such an ingenious way to open up a brand new show. I thought it showed a little bit of risk there as a way to bring across information and the fact, that's such a great hook to bring people into the series, from the perspective of children. Um, I think that's still my favorite because I just think it really, encapsulate the frailty of humanity, where we're at, what the threats are, at a very high level. But it brings across so much information in just a couple of minutes. Um, so
Yeah,
yeah,
that was
that's
definitely
mine.
on my list. It's such a powerful scene because not only are you getting a child's vantage point through their artwork and them telling what has literally happened. I mean, it's showing that that's what they've seen.
Hmm.
And, children seeing such horrors is sad, but it also highlights how bad of a position that humanity is in. Yeah, I totally agree. Great intro. I did not remember this intro on rewatch. Like I did not remember the opening sequence of the kids tellings and the pictures and stuff. So um, it's a really well done. Um, for me, I think I'll go on the flip side. Uh,
Hmm.
my top scene, I'll pick because I think we've talked about. I'll go back and look, but I think we've talked about most of them. The end scene. Um, you touched on it earlier with just you know the semblance of humanity and these normal interactions that happen with Hal and Tom hugging and the crowd basically just watching a boy play on his board. Um, and you highlighted Weaver kind of letting that, happen and watching, um, which as a character, Weaver seems rigid, but in that moment, it shows that he's able to kind of, you know, let them have that moment and give Tom kind of the like recognition and authority to end it,
Hmm.
since it's his son, and so I really liked um, watching that all come together. Um, Hal remembering to get something for Matt and saying it was from Tom. Like
Hmm.
I was just senile. He's forgotten. Like he got this, and so it just I really like that idea of like everyone's got to band together. Like whether it's the families, they say it takes a village.
Hmm.
I mean that's what they're doing now, and uh, so it was good to watch. And I hope we get more of those sequences along the way to help, highlight what they are fighting for. So, um, are there any scenes that we haven't talked about that um you thought are standout or any ones that we've maybe haven't spent enough time on?
I did like obviously the love interest and Glass, the doctor, and Tom, we start to see some glimpses of maybe a relationship starting there. We also have, I think it's Di, Day, one
Think
of the
Die?
fighters. Maybe
Yeah.
it's Di. One of the fighters who uh, has pinched some C4 for their excursion in to get food. Obviously he's got a little connection, and so we see, there's not a lot of humor in this. Um, and I was thinking as you were talking about how different genres use different things, different uh, techniques to you know, um, kind of bring that tension down, and give it a pause. Horror seems to be humor, and I'm like, okay, so is post-apocalyptic, alien invasion, is it, kind of tapping into our humanity, keeping us grounded, and the reason why we're doing or having to do the things that we would not normally do. So I was just thinking about that as you were talking. So we'll see how that goes. I'll be curious because there's not a lot of humor in this, but there's a lot of touching moments. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of continues, or will they bring in some humor. Um, and I'm going to ask you a question, but I'll wait till after we talk about our favorite character. But I do want to kind of revisit. Well, I'll just say it now so you can think about it. But I would love to revisit because you mentioned at the top of the episode that obviously you're revisiting it. So I'd love your thoughts on your revisit after having seen it. I think when it first televised, you know, how does it resonate for you today? Because in 2011, I don't think you were a dad yet.
Not yet.
Um,
No.
yeah, so would love to hear your thoughts on, how does it resonate for you today? And has it aged well, and which we can both speak to, and what are themes that resonate maybe today, in today's society. But we'll get there.
Okay.
But what about you? Were there any scenes that you felt didn't get touched on that might be a good spot to talk about here?
Let's see. I one scene that I liked, that the only scene that we haven't mentioned that I had listed was when they're heading out after announcing they're abandoning the city. Tom just stops at this pile of books
Oh, yeah.
and he just kind of is perusing through, and he picks up was it 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea, or is that the one he picks up? He picks up that
Yeah,
first.
he picks out 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea,
20,000. Yes.
and then he looks at A Tale of Two Cities.
And
But
he's
before
debating.
that, I love how he picked up the pop, the People or Us magazine.
Yeah.
He looks at it and he's like, that doesn't have value, especially there. But when he picks up the literature books and then he kind of weighs them out, and I think he kept A Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that scene too.
And it's just one of those things where, clearly he can't take a lot of things and he has to make a choice because they're hefty books. So he picks just one. And I just like that. Again, I think that's kind of establishing who he is as a character and recognizing the value in literature and,
Mhm.
you know, making sure that that's not forgotten. Um, and I will also add, as far as like the whole parenting vibe with humor. was the only joke I can think of was I think it landed like a dad joke uh, when he was talking about you mentioned how history has proved that like these tactics of annoying the enemy have worked. And the last example he gave was the Red Sox beating the Yankees.
Yes.
And I was like, I think that's a dad joke, right? Does that qualify as a dad joke? Because it was one of those things where it was kind of because his son's already kind of like, hey, lay off the history lessons, dad,
It's funny that in order to kind of get across his his lesson, he has to, look at something that's a more common language, because studying his, military tactics is not like common language necessarily.
Yeah,
And it's not something that everybody's interested in or will get. But sports is kind of one of those talk about weather, talk about sports, or talk about the celebs or something, as a way to kind of bridge those gaps. So it is funny. The other thing that I was just thinking of when you mentioned that, that I'd forgotten about is when he comes back and Annie, has been taking care of Matt.
yeah.
And I think she says, "Oh, a tough day at the office." Oh, yeah. Well, were you able to find anything? And, he pulls out the one can of tuna and he says, and I think she says, "Man, the price of tuna has gotten really high or something." So yeah, I correct myself. There is a little bit of humor, but, what really stands out are the touching moments, I think.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of humor in there, um, to kind of, you have to have a little humor. You have to be able to laugh a little bit, um, because otherwise it would just be completely tragic. Um,
Yeah, and I
and
think those moments are drier. Like it's
mhm,
not like a ha ha oh uh it's almost like their release valve to
mhm.
just oh I almost just died. I'm back from the office. Sighting number two.
Yes, and by the
Uh
way, that is a new addition. Her name is Moo Moo. She found us. So, and she's been with us for going on almost 3 weeks that she's been indoors, but we think maybe someone abandoned her. And she's quite young. She's only like about 10 months. She's very curious about everything. Um, but yeah, that is Moo. So
she's
that
starting
is
starting
her
to find her place.
starting to find her place and her first on-screen appearance. One of many,
Uh
probably. But anyway,
well no, let's see. With I mean, since we've touched on so many scenes already, shall we move on to most interesting character?
sure. Yeah, we can do that.
Um, I listed two people.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, but I felt like it was relatively easy for me to pick who. So,
Mm-hmm.
what about you?
Yeah, it was pretty easy. I mean, I could try to tease you, but it's not April 1. But no, I went with Tom.
Yeah,
I felt like he was the clear, this episode was to introduce a lot of characters, but he obviously was the main hero. Um, and the one really driving the story. Um, so definitely him. He had the most screen time. I think he was in every scene. It's really kind of from his perspective. So, yeah, I chose him. Um, I
same.
just I like him as a character. I like, the dad aspect of him. And I'll be honest, I think maybe I've seen Noah in one other maybe TV movie or something like that. I didn't watch ER. Wasn't really into hospital dramas. But I'm curious by the pit. Um, and seeing him in this, I would definitely seek him out in other things to watch. I just think he really comes across as being the dad, the military history professor, he comes off, he rings, his performance has an authenticity about it. He's believable, and I'm able
Yeah,
to suspend my disbelief, and follow his journey. So I had to go with him. And you?
yeah.
You had
Uh,
two, so I'm curious about your two.
I mentioned Hal as the number two, just because he got the second most screen time. You know, his interactions, I thought, kind of showcased his flexibility with, you know, helping Matt, you know, back wherever they're living at the moment, and um, but also his role as a scout. Um,
Mhm.
but Tom was the clear choice for me as well. Thinking about your question about seeing it now again as a parent, um,
Mhm.
I think the scene where he tackles Hal is um, very impactful because he has the strength to not go in that moment. Um, and I think that says a lot about him.
Mhm.
I mean, he vocalizes what he wants and that he equally wants to go get Ben back, but they can't do it then because they'll just die. Um, and seeing that, and you witness him like literally try to get him off the bike, and then he tackles him to the ground, and he's on there trying to like pin his arms down, just like to get control, and so he can have Hal listen to him and try to find reason. And just the fact that he's able to do that, because he's managing more than just one kid. You know,
Mhm.
he has three kids, and they've already lost the mother. Um, and it's I don't know if I mean I'm sure I appreciated the scene when I was watching and how important it was, but I guess trying to navigate those thoughts as a parent when you're juggling so many balls in the air as a parent as it is, and now he's a leader in this military, and he has to also think of all the civilians that are under Weaver's command. You know, it's supposed to be
Mhm.
100 fighters, 200 civilians, and their job is to get food. And um, so I struggle trying to comprehend that. The dire situation, and but also coming across, you know, to Hal, his son, to say, you're all important,
Mhm.
but none of it matters if we die right now.
Yeah.
So I think it probably resonates more now.
Mhm.
On the rewatch, I will say I do think that maybe just the um, I don't want to say production value, but viewing it in the commercial, the places where you can tell, I'm assuming where commercials are,
Mhm.
um, it almost feels like the series was made in the 90s by
Oh,
when I'm watching
interesting.
it. Eh, so and maybe that's the color palette, maybe it's the way that scenes shift with a little bit of a fade to black, kind of reminded me of maybe like the 90s version of Outer Limits to a degree.
Hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
so and that's not a bad thing, but I guess comparing it to Lost, it doesn't seem um I guess the production of that doesn't seem to be as fluid as a series as Lost, which is an older series.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that because I was just thinking that even when there are obviously breaks with Lost. Like there's a couple places where you can tell, like, okay, I think that's where a commercial break must have been. Um, but yeah, I would agree that it those breaks in Lost were more fluid, so that you really didn't notice it. It just felt like you kept going, like naturally,
Yeah.
um, without commercials. And yeah, there does seem to be a few times that kind of like take you out just slightly. Not a lot, but it is, oh, that's where a commercial would have gone, you
Yeah.
know. Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Um, I don't know if necessarily 90s, but I could definitely see the influence of like Battlestar Galactica. Now, I didn't see the updated version. I saw the original. But I could see where there's definitely, you know, um, parentage, and influence, from Battlestar Galactica with this. There's that similar feel.
And
But
I saw the reboot. I I think I
oh,
saw
okay.
maybe I think I might have seen the first couple episodes of the original after the fact, but
Mhm.
uh I think that was my attempt to try to watch the original series. But yeah, I think that's the only I mean I don't know if I don't want to cast it as a negative aspect of this rewatch. But
Hmm.
it's just something I noticed that
Yeah.
the transitions didn't seem they were more abrupt
Yeah.
than other shows that we've watched. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think otherwise, I think that the use of aliens and how they've integrated the look of those, I think they did fine. I liked the mystique of their weaponry, I think works well. And definitely heightens the danger and the stress and the tension of being found out by yeah, she's back. Being found out by or being found by these skitters or mechs, and that they're really bad news. Um, so yeah, I think that that still works well, even though this is, 14 years ago that this series came out.
yeah, and as you were talking about the mechs and that targeting system with the multiple lights, it
Hmm.
just reminded me that that kind of reminds me of a much bigger, broader version of like the Predator
Oh
sight.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Um, but it's like a lot of different targets. And like the targets are like when they're blue or gray or whatever it is, they're like almost like they're out searching. And when they hone on something, they focus into this like orange color, um, which is kind of I like that aspect of it because you kind of get it's almost like a little warning light of like, okay, you're almost in danger.
Yeah.
If it gets orange, get the hell out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, don't become a deer in headlights at that moment. Mm-mm.
No, let's see.
I think the other thing that we discussed briefly, and that is this harness. The fact that the children are taken as slaves. That is really huh, interesting that they don't want adults.
Yeah,
Obviously, these harnesses do something to, make them docile. But children are precocious and wild and, you know, impulsive. So it's interesting, but they're also the weaker part of our population. So it's interesting that it's the children. There's a lot of like juxtaposition about choosing children to be their slaves and to do their bidding
yeah,
versus adults, which should become docile by these harnesses. Just on the brief scene that we see, Ben and the other kids, they're walking, they seem like zombies. So, well, I mean, not to get ahead, but just a little. I mean, we do see what these children are being used for, and I am kind of in a quandary, uh, why they just kill off, the adults and don't use them for, the slave labor that they have
Yeah.
the kids, being used for. So that's kind of interesting. Also, funnily, it kind of reminds me of an old Star Trek episode where there's just the kids left in a society. This was one of the original uh, series episodes, and just the fact that, when they turn like 18, they're, I don't know if they die or what exactly it is. I don't think it's like a Logan's Run thing, but there's something happens that there's just the kids in that society. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's just interesting. I'm very curious about why the kids, why
Yeah.
the kids, not the adults. Are they less dangerous? Are they easier to, make docile by those harnesses? So does that mean the harnesses are, not as strong on adult, or they're, you know, we already know. I mean, you and I, we've seen ahead, so we kind of know how they work. So why wouldn't they work on adults, especially if you're using them for labor?
Yeah.
I'm very curious
No,
by that. That seems kind of like, I'll be anxious to, learn more about that. So,
no, that's definitely a good point. And honestly, I don't remember enough about the show to recall even yeah, but why wouldn't they use
yeah.
grown-ups? So no, that'll be interesting to see how that factors in moving forward. Um, uh, for my third question, it's kind of a basic one. We've probably already touched on it, but
Yeah.
um, I would say what most about the first episode would you say draws you in to want to keep watching?
Hmm. I think they set it up. I think the first episode sets up well that you want to see them succeed. You want to see, obviously, we identify with the humans, so we want to see them succeed. And we've had lots of other movies and television shows that involve alien invasion, and we've been able to get them to go away. So while this, you know, in this genre again, will these people be able to get the aliens to go away? And it seems like it's a real uphill battle, um, because there is this kind of alien hierarchy that we're already seeing, and it seems to be touching into and tapping into every layer of our societal makeup. Uh, so I'm very curious about that. I'm intrigued, because I want to see where it goes. I also love, space horror films, including, shows that are take place here on Earth. So I have that interest too. And also just the characters themselves.
Yeah.
I identify, with Tom insofar as like his intellectual background. I feel like I've got a connection because I love history, and, so I get lessons that he's trying to convey, without being like, oh, Dad, really? Another history lesson type of a moment.
Yeah.
But they have, it seems like their challenges are insurmountable. So I'm ready to go along for the ride and see where they go. And I hope it's a series that stays as strong as it is, with the first episode. That's
Yeah.
always a challenge, you know. Um, and I really don't know how the series goes because like I said, I've only recently watched the first season and had started the second. And of course, it doesn't have the mystique of Lost. So I don't feel as strongly about like not knowing about what's going to happen, like with Lost, because there is a big thing about that.
Yeah.
Whatever it be, because I still don't know, and I'm gonna stay ignorant until we can watch it, continue watching. But um, No, I'm very intrigued and I'm ready to go on their adventure. And their hero's journey to find survival and some normalcy, or normacy, that they had prior to the invasion. This representation of society, will it survive? So
Yeah.
I'm ready to follow that and find out if they do. What
Yeah,
about
same.
you?
I
Because you didn't finish it. So,
yeah, I think I'm in agreement on your vantage point. Just seeing how they manage day to day, because the encounters with the aliens are so like with one mech and one skidder, they were, you know, it seemed like in danger of dying with just small numbers like that. So I'm
mhm.
interested to see, you know, how future encounters and how they're able to deal with that. Um, I will say as we're wrapping up, are there any other moments that you can think of or anything we haven't touched on that uh, you want to chat about before we pop off?
No, I feel like we covered pretty much everything. I mean, this was an establishing, premiere pilot episode, so I feel like we hit on all of the big things that we needed to. But of course, if we didn't, and you feel that there was something we missed, that's what downstairs those comments are for. So
Absolutely.
definitely leave comments, and if you have spoilers, just kind of alert everybody ahead of time so that way, if they want to avoid that, they can. But yeah, what about you? Any last thoughts or scenes that we didn't cover?
No, I think we nailed it. And I'm looking forward to getting to the next episode. If again, thank you for watching. Whoever's got us on or in the background listening. If you haven't, please subscribe.
Yeah.
Um, if you have comments, share them. We've recently covered the Thursday Murder Club, and by the time this is up, that will be available. I'll put a link to that in the description below that you can check out. Any other movies or shows you want us to cover? We've got a list building, so there's a chance it's on our list. So
Yeah, yeah.
let us know. And other than that, we will see everyone on the flip side.